Do you want me to wait? Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast of the United States. Today, we're going to talk about cloudifying your legacy applications. My name is AJ Kuftik. I'm Principal Technologist with Expedient. I'm glad you've joined us today. Quick housekeeping note, if you have any questions, please enter those down below into the Q&A panel. That helps us keep track of the questions. Our VP of Pre-Sales Engineering, Rob McCafferty, is on with us today. He'll be answering questions live in the Q&A panel, and he'll be answering questions with me live at the end of the session. If you ask a question, you're entering to win a prize. That prize this week is a retro mini fridge. Everybody's working from home, so get a little mini fridge for your office or your workspace, maybe your garage. And if this is interesting to you, or you think this would be interesting for somebody else, or you have to step away and you missed part of it, all of this is being recorded, so you'll be able to get a link in your email. You could also go to go.expedient.com/webinar replays, or youtube.com/expedient, or instagram.com/_expedient for all of your video needs. For those of you who are new to Expedient, we were founded in 2001. We started in co-location, moved into managed services, and are now in cloud. We have cloud locations in US East, Central, and West. Happy birthday to our West region that opened at the end of 2019. And we have international cloud deployments on customer sites in Australia, Germany, and Canada. So if our cloud locations don't work, we can bring that cloud to you. And that applies domestically as well. We're a VMware cloud provider and have been since the inception in 2007. We have thousands of virtual machines on our platform. So whether you want to bring 5 virtual machines or 5,000 virtual machines, we can support you. Does anybody remember these? These are cassettes, for those of you who don't. I actually owned this album. This is the Beach Boys' Endless Summer album, and I did let the tape rock till it popped. And this was an analog form, right, of media. And one of the biggest benefits to cassettes was the ability for you to take your music wherever you went. Prior to that, you had the radio, and you could bring a radio with you, but you were kind of subject to whatever the radio was playing at the time. The other option to play what you wanted was vinyl, and that's very much a stationary activity. So a cassette allowed you to take your media with you and bring it to wherever you wanted to go. The Sony Walkman and then all the various knockoff cassette players really brought that forward. But there were challenges to this model. Every album you wanted to bring with you, every song you wanted to bring with you was a physical piece of media. So you had to choose wisely what you were going to bring with you and listen to and what you weren't. And if any of these tapes broke, which mine certainly did, you would have to tape the actual magnetic tape inside of the cassette or buy a new cassette completely. And so this became very much a management of media challenge. But cassettes were great and all, but they had a couple of bigger challenges. Things like rewinding wasn't very fun. The audio quality was fine, but not great. And so we now enter the CD. You have the same music. Nothing about that music has changed. Every note is still the same note. But you're still managing this physical media. You still have to bring these discs wherever you want to go. And even then, this starts to bring in some of the challenges of vinyl where you have skips when you're moving things. So you're bringing things forward sound quality wise and the ability to select the exact track on the album where you want to listen to it, but you're entering into a bunch of new challenges. And when you're carrying around one CD, that's fine. But when you carry a lot of them, it becomes a much harder issue. And so this is a challenge of just physical media in general, right? We're looking at carrying one CD is easy, but I'm sure many of you remember carrying one of these books and trying to store all of your media. Where do you put it all? And then how do you make sure that it's available to you when you want to go grab it, when you want to listen to that one album? Do you remember where everything is? Do you alphabetize? Do you go by genre? How do you actually do that? And so you're spending a lot of time just managing the media and managing how you actually listen to your music versus just sitting down and listening to the songs. And so in that storage, you start to run into repairs and replacement issues. CDs get scratched real easy. You ever leave a CD under the seat of a car? It's just rumbling on whatever gravel, dirt, road salt, whatever. I'm in the northern part of the United States, so we have a lot of rock salt. You'll scratch an album or two. And so the repairs and replacement, it's up to you to manage all of this. And so what happens? Technology comes in to save the day. We make the shift from physical media to virtual media with the iPod, one of these guys. This is my iPod. This is a 4th or 5th gen, somewhere in there. I have the original somewhere, and it drives me crazy that I missed it out for this. But the original iPod comes along, and now you have a completely new storage management issue. You're not managing racks of CDs or racks of tapes. You're managing files. These individual files that take up 3.5, 4, 5 megs, depending on the length of the song. And then even the album itself can be 15 to 20 songs long, right? As these albums get bigger and as they get longer, because they're not really tied to any physical constraint, the storage that's inside of your iPod and the storage that's inside of your computer become an issue. How do I manage all of this? How do I make sure that this media is available? Because the original iPod was a 5 gig device, 5 gigs. Most VM ISOs now, the DVD format is bigger than an entire iPod, the original one. This one's like 30, right? So it grew, but not at a huge rate. And so you're keeping up with this music collection, having to call your music collection, like, I don't have enough storage. What albums do I never want to listen to again? I got to delete all those. And then if you wanted to protect all of this, you can't just say, well, it's all in this physical space. And if I break one CD, I only broke one CD. If your hard drive fails or your iPod dies, your music collection itself is gone. And so you have to have backups for those sorts of things. People get into home RAID arrays, or they have a second hard drive and there's a copy job. And again, you're spending a lot of time just managing the media and not listening to the music. And even then, it's even a more expensive option. The iPod originally was $400 for a 5 gig music player. Now technology shrunk and storage got bigger, but it's still very expensive to manage all this and buy all the media to put onto it. This is still a lot of work, right? You're still doing a lot of effort, a lot of work just to make this sort of thing happen. So what happens? Spotify comes along. Oh, this is different. I'm paying per month for at least one album, right? I'm buying the new album from artist A comes out. I want to listen to that. I want to listen to this next album from artist B. That one comes out. Oh man, this is a big week. There's like 3 or 4 different artists. I want to buy their album. Now I'm spending $40 on CDs or iTunes libraries or iTunes albums to actually get all of that. Instead of paying per album, you're now paying monthly for access to this gigantic library. And a lot of this is enabled by having higher speed internet. And we now have high-speed internet to our devices. At the time Spotify came out, it was like 2009, 2010. 3G was now a cellular technology that was widely available. So now I can pull out my phone and listen to whatever music from the Spotify library I want to, and I just have to deal with data costs. But I'm paying monthly instead of per album. And then there's no storage needed for any of this. I don't have to fight about storage and how many albums I can keep on my device or how many albums I can keep on my local hard drive. All of those storage problems go away and I get out of the business of managing my media. And then because I don't have to manage my media, I'm not worried about the platform that it runs on. Do I have my own personal interests as to how Spotify delivers music to hundreds, if not thousands of listeners every minute? Yes. But I don't have to worry about that as a deep reason why I do the things that I do or why I build my own music collection the way that I do that. The problem, though, is that Spotify itself isn't perfect, right? It's opinionated and a little limited in some of its libraries, right? Especially if you have an artist like Jay-Z, right? He has his own music service, so he saves a couple of his albums for his service. So if you want to listen to his entire catalog, you have to go over there. And even then, Spotify will try to get their own exclusives on albums that you can't get on other services. So if you're a user of a different service and Spotify's got the exclusive on the album, you're kind of hosed. And so that becomes kind of a challenge. It's almost like, I don't know, a hyperscale cloud in terms of it's telling you what's available, not you telling it what you want to listen to. And speaking of that, you can't even bring your own music. Other services you can do that, but with Spotify, you can't do that. You can't take your album and put it into Spotify. And if you listen to a lot of independent artists, your friend started a band and you want to listen to their music because it's good, you can't do that on Spotify inside of their service. You have to maybe have it as a local file. It's challenging. You can do it, but it now involves you putting more effort in, right? Which was the whole point of going to Spotify. You don't want to do that anymore. And finally, there's little support for legacy music or out of print music. If you have an older artist that doesn't have any current distribution, or they put out some records back in the 70s and then they went away forever, you can't listen to that music on any of the streaming services because they don't have access to it. And even then, if you want to listen to an international artist, if Spotify doesn't have a licensing deal there, you can't. And that is a big, big challenge. But what if you could get the same benefits of having someone else manage that platform and have somebody else take away the media management capabilities for you? What if you could do that, but with your infrastructure, right? If we go back to that original iPod thing, we're talking about storage management, we're talking about backups and how expensive it is, both from a cost standpoint to buy the hardware and the music, and dealing with the time that it takes to manage all of that. Does this sound familiar at all? You're doing the same thing with your infrastructure right now. This storage array that's in the corner, that's managing that has all the storage for your applications, you still have to maintain that. Repairing hard drives, replacing that array when it comes up for maintenance, OS patching, monitoring, hardware refreshes every now and then. All of these things, cooling, power, floor space, all of these things come together to form a lot of wheel spin for you as a user. You're spending a lot of time managing the infrastructure and not spending enough time on the applications and thus the songs that play on top of the platform. You need a cloud that works for you. You need a cloud that is going to help you move forward. And so that's where Expedient Enterprise Cloud comes in. It is an infrastructure as a service platform, right? We eliminate the platform headaches. We eliminate the things that you don't want to do. Those ESX patches, even OS patching, managing a firewall, managing all of the networks, managing all of the resources that go on the back end of your platform, storage, compute, network, all of those are eliminated. And it's up to us to maintain those for you. And I know you might be thinking, oh, well, if that's what's going on there, what do I have to do here? It's a co-managed platform. You don't maintain the bottom. You don't maintain the platform. You maintain the playlist. You maintain the applications that are at the top level. You maintain how your applications move forward. You get to put a cloud operating model around your applications. And when we talk about cloud, everybody gets kind of jumpy about egress fees and how do my applications actually line up with what data is going out of them? Is my main accounting application a problem? Do I know that my order tracking system isn't pumping a ton of data out to the actual world? How do I know where my data costs are going? You don't have to worry about that with Expedient Enterprise Cloud. We don't have egress fees. You bring your applications and you just use them. There's no additional thought around what your network traffic is, because there's more to this than just the cloud, right? You can bring your own applications and bring them as is. You can lift and shift, and that's sometimes a boogie word term inside of this, in industry. But the ability to lift and shift into an enterprise cloud that's all VMware based. We're running the same ESXi that you're running on your platform. So when you bring your VMs to us, they land on our platform and they run exactly the same way, so that you get to focus on what you care about. You don't have to refactor, you don't have to rewrite, you don't have to change anything. The exact same design works. And so that frees your time. And instead of paying per album or instead of paying per song, you're paying monthly for an overall service. And we can provide an end-to-end infrastructure. This is a challenge for a lot of people on premises because it's very expensive to put all of the technologies in place that we have available to you, right? So we have our cloud where you can land your virtual machines, land your storage, land your network. But then what about backups? What about disaster recovery? What about security? We offer all of the services to make sure that you have your protected data, through cohesivity with our backups, the ability to restore a VM very quickly, the ability to restore files incredibly quickly, and get you back up and running when somebody makes a mistake, right? Things happen, people delete the wrong file, they delete the wrong VM, and you can restore very quickly and get yourself back up and running. But at the same time, maybe you're thinking about bigger issues. Maybe you're thinking about what happens if there's a storm that hits your area. You're thinking about, how do I protect against a ransomware attack? That's where our push button DR platform comes in. And you can do disaster recovery between our data centers on our 100 gig network and fail everything over. Your external IPs, internal IPs, VPN tunnels, egress points, fail all of that over quickly and easily. And your users don't have to change anything that they're doing. They just see the outage while you're doing the failover, which is a very brief period of time. And finally, as you want to move forward and try new things or modernize your platform, this is where cloud native comes into play. Our cloud native platform is powered by Rancher, Portworx, and Elastic. So we're able to put these containers and they run right on top of Expedient Enterprise Cloud. So your containers, your next gen applications sit right next to your current applications, and with our colo services, sit right next to your legacy platforms. So there's no jumping around to different services. There's no jumping around to any sort of egress fees. This service going to this service is actually a cost. All of that math is eliminated, and you have a very simple platform to modernize your applications and modernize your infrastructure. So if you want to hear how a CIO from a local community college is bringing remote learning in COVID to their students, please join us next week for a fireside chat with Matt Etchison from Ivy Tech Community College. He is a really, really great speaker and is going to tell us all about how they made the transition during COVID from a very in-person learning world to a completely virtual one. And if you'd like to get your hands on the Expedient Enterprise Cloud, please reach out to me, aj.kuftick@expedient.com or expedient.com/VMware-test-drive. And you can sign up for a 30-day free trial, 128 gigs of RAM, a terabyte of storage, and full portal access. That's UI and API. So you can kick the tires and see how we can help you cloudify those legacy applications without having you completely rip up everything that you have. And with that, I'll open it up for questions. Rob McCafferty, our VP of Pre-Sales Engineering, is with us. Hi, Rob.
Hey, AJ, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Good, awesome presentation.
Thanks.
So yeah, a whole bunch of questions came in, so we'll just start talking about a few of them. The first one was more of a comment, but I thought it was interesting. When you were talking about the iPad, the comment was that the Zune had more features and was probably a better product. So I think that's important, right? That the largest marketing machine isn't always the best product. And I think you can think about that when you think about cloud providers as well, right? There are some providers out there that have a much larger marketing presence, but they might not be the most featured or best fit for any given application.
I want to send a personal shout out to Daniel Necker, who mentioned Creative Labs. I cannot tell you how many times I was thinking about what the other MP3 player was, because there was one that came before the iPod and it was driving me crazy. Thank you, Daniel. You've alleviated my brain for the entire afternoon. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I left that one in there because I was going to make a comment about that when you mentioned early in your presentation about bringing the cloud to you and being able to provision a cloud-like experience for a client at their site. Very similar to that comment where Apple wasn't the first one to build an MP3 player. We developed the ability to deploy an on-site cloud a little over 3 years ago, and then just last year you saw a lot of other folks starting to offer that type of service. So be early sometimes is good. We got a lot of traction with that offering and deployed a lot of clouds out to our clients at their site pretty early on.
We have a question here about multi-cloud and multi-cloud connectivity. Do you need to set up different direct connect, fast connect, express route, basically all of the various direct connections to a hyperscale cloud? Do you need separate fiber to the building, or can they share the same? That'll be up to your carrier. Some of them will offer them independently. I know a couple carriers will offer a connection from you to the carrier, and then the carrier splits you out from there. It makes it easier for you to manage from a pure physical connectivity standpoint. Something to talk about with your carrier, but we also offer our own hyperscale connections from our data center, where if you come into our data center, you're running on our platform, we have 100 gig connectivity to hyperscale clouds, to Equinix point of presence. So we're able to provide you with a super fast highway to bring you up and down from a hyperscale cloud. So if you do have applications that run out there, and we recognize that people do, we can help get you there faster. What are the different Expedient data center locations that would act as redundant data zones during primary failover? You can utilize any of our data centers. They're generally spaced about 90 to 100 miles apart. So in traditional DR terms, they're all generally separated from each other. They are all their own independent places. So we have data centers in Cleveland and Columbus, right? They're both in the state of Ohio. They're separated by about 90 to 100 miles. And then we have multiple data centers in those markets. So we have the ability to land in 2 different markets and have very fast connectivity and failover with our push button DR platform.
I'll take a couple of questions here as a general theme around how does Expedient coexist with other cloud providers, primarily the public cloud providers, and what type of applications may or may not be a good fit for Expedient. So a few things there. The first, how do we engage and interact with other cloud providers? We fully support and encourage our clients to choose the right cloud for the right workload. So if an application or a workload is best suited for a public cloud, then we encourage you to put it there. If it's best suited for an enterprise cloud, then we encourage you to put it there. And our goal is to provide services over top of those different cloud platforms, so that you have a consistent management feel and approach, you have a consistent security policy, and you have a consistent data management policy across those different types of clouds. So you can deploy, manage, secure your different workloads across different clouds in a consistent manner, and then provide you that guidance when you want to deploy a new workload or a new application on what is the best cloud for that workload, not only technically, but financially and from a compliance perspective as well. So insights are really the key of choosing the right cloud and understanding what types of applications should run in different types of clouds. One of the more specific questions there was, are there any types of softwares that can't run in different types of clouds? And I guess I would say I don't think we've really come across anything that couldn't run in enterprise cloud. One of the flexibilities that we offer in our private cloud is the ability to design and architect different types of hardware to meet different needs, right? There are softwares, Oracle is probably the most common one, where it's CPU or core-based licensing. So we have offerings around different ways to architect that cloud to meet different application needs.
How do you go about getting buy-in to move key workloads? So there's 2 major ways to go about doing it. Is you get buy-in from a top level that says, we need to get out of our data center and you're going to move all of your workloads. And that's how you do that. If you're trying to get buy-in from people who are hesitant, the best way to go about that is to put some less critical workloads out there. Put things out there and do it as a phased approach. You don't have to big bang move everything to the cloud in a single afternoon, right? You can do it piecemeal. You can say, okay, we're going to move these test servers. We're going to move these dev servers. We're going to move maybe these tier 2 applications. We're going to move this tier 1 application. Okay, now let's move our big tier 0 application. We have a customer that has almost 4,000 virtual machines with us. They've run everything on our platform. We have customers that run manufacturing on our platform. We have references that we can use from a criticality thing, but at the same time, your applications are your applications. They are up to you, and how they perform and how you expect them to perform is known by you, not by us. So for you to get that buy-in, what you need to do is maybe start to bring things in. This is, again, the 30-day free trial. Move in some of your test dev workloads for the 30-day trial and see how they run, see how they perform, see how it works. and then say, you know what, this actually works out really well for us. And we really appreciate that there's a 100% SLA that we can fall back on if it doesn't. So those capabilities of being able to bring that in and be successful up out of the gate is something that we pride ourselves on. So, bring something light and then move your way up from there.
There was a question around how do we move data into our cloud environment? So we have a migration team. So one of the benefits that you would get from utilizing a company like Expedient is that we're able to provide not only an implementation team but a migration team as well. So when you come on board, you're going to have a project manager. You're going to have a systems engineer, a network engineer, and then if needed, a migration engineer. And they're going to work with you throughout the process to get your applications and data migrated into the environment and get you set on your way to managing that environment as you go.
Do you need an Azure, AWS, GCP subscription before Expedient Cloud can sit onto it for management, or is it all bundled together? You would need your own subscription, right? So what we would be doing is helping you manage your platforms that you would already have. So, or if you want to move your way out there, we would help you get started. But from this standpoint, you would still need to have your own subscription to that. It's not coming through a subscription that we have. It would be up to you guys on that one. Y'all. The analogy is that Spotify is a fixed monthly fee, but what about Expedient? So this is one of our biggest differentiators between us and a hyperscale cloud. What we offer is a predictable monthly cost. When you sign on with Expedient, you have a set of resources that you can use however you'd like, right? So we help you sit down and size that out. So if you know that your applications need, 500 gigs of RAM and, 25 terabytes of storage, those are the resources that you pay for. And you pay for that same 500 gigs and 250 terabytes or 25 terabytes of storage. You pay for that every single month, whether you use all of it or whether you use a portion of it. And what that allows you to do is set your budget to that. And it makes it very simple. There's no spike in usage in January and nothing in March. You just get this nice even charge across the entire year and entire length of the contract. So it's actually very helpful for the financial side of this, where you know what you're getting into, you know what you're going to pay, and you can predict and budget off of that instead of having to hope that nobody leaves something running or have to budget in a bunch of wiggle room in case someone leaves something running. It makes it very, very straightforward. So it is kind of a fixed cost, but it's a predictable one.
Yeah, similar question to that one was around what distinguishes kind of our cloud service from the public cloud providers. I think AJ talked a little bit about how we're different from a billing and consumption perspective. I also would mention that granularity would be one of the areas where we provide some benefit. In the public cloud providers, there are predefined, as we call it, t-shirt size VMs that you have to fit into. So if there's a 2 CPU and 8 gig of RAM VM, but you only need 6 gig of RAM, you have to buy more than you're going to use. In an environment like Expedient, you're provided a pool of resources that is sized down to the per gig of disk and the per gig of RAM, and you can assign those resources to the VM as they need them, so that you're not wasting any resources and you're only really buying the exact amount that you need.
There's a question here about how granular is push button DR. The granularity is up to you. So you build the virtual protection groups, and that's done as part of our delivery process, where you sit down with our delivery team to actually build your runbook. You can get down to, I only want to recover this one VM from one site to another. You can absolutely do that. There's a question about a file. That would be more of a application level sort of replication, whether that's in the backups or whether that's in something like DFS, building out an actual file structure to be able to be available in both places and have a recoverability on that file. But from the ability to fail over from one site to another, you can get down to just one system. We've definitely had customers who recover some of their individual platforms, or they recover their individual machines for test dev purposes. They recover their database server to do database schema testing. So there's a couple different ways to do that, but yes, we can get very granular with push button DR.
Another question about how easy or how fast and how easy would it be to transition from Azure? Because one of the concerns with Azure that is mentioned is that if you transfer from one zone to another, it's basically a rebuild. So, if you think about how fast it would be, that's the classic "it depends" answer, right? How much data are we talking about? What's the change rate? Kind of all those questions. But how easy would it be? Pretty easy, right? We have utilities and tools that allow us to bring VMs cross-platform into our environment, keep them in sync from a replica perspective, and then perform a cutover when we're ready. The place where we would have to do some work and planning would be kind of on the public IP address side. When you're transferring between Expedient data centers, those public-facing IPs transfer with the applications. When you're going cross-platform, obviously, Microsoft's not going to allow us to take their IP blocks, so we would have to assign you Expedient ones and use, either DNS failover or global load balancing or some solution like that to fail over IPs. So, not difficult. That's kind of something that we do every day. Migrate clients, between clouds, between Expedient sites, pretty seamless.
And that comes back to our delivery team. So our delivery team actually does this with you. It's not like you have to go figure that out and figure out how to do everything and read a bunch of documentation. Our delivery team helps you do that. We also partner with a number of VARs in the industry to help with some migrations from on-prem to us, or even particular applications that we know are things like Oracle, SQL, those sorts of things that can be a little bit trickier. We can help you partner with them so that you can have a smooth and successful experience.
Question about separation of responsibility. So AJ talked a little bit about co-management. So that's kind of a decision that we would make through the design process. If there's an area that you don't want Expedient to have, engagement in and provide service on, that you can choose not to. If there's an area that you want Expedient to fully be responsible for, that's a choice that can be made. Or if there's something that you want us to kind of work on together, we can do that as well. So maybe it's something where Monday through Friday 8 to 5, you're going to take on those responsibilities, but after hours and evenings, you're going to call and rely on Expedient. That's kind of a model that we support as well. And then a question similar to that that we talked about earlier from a how do we charge perspective, specifically asking about VPN tunnels. We don't charge for IP addresses. We don't charge for VPN tunnels, kind of all those things that can quickly, confuse and run up a bill that some of the other providers charge for.
How frequently can I resize? As frequently as you'd like. It depends on the small it depends to this is whether or not you're just resizing a VM inside of your resource pool and you have available resources right now. You could do it again and again and again. If you need to resize the resource pool overall, that is something that we can work with you on and make that. It's actually a very quick process. And if you need it as an emergency, you can absolutely call our support team and they'll help you get that. But from a resize standpoint, you should be able to resize your VMs whenever you'd like to.
Another question about, do we allow SD-WAN appliances? Yeah, absolutely. As we've kind of mentioned now a couple of times, we work with our clients and prospects to figure out, the right amount of Expedient services versus the right amount of kind of DIY in the environment. And that's really where we excel, is bringing those two things together, right? Pretty common. We offer a fully managed, firewall network security experience, but some clients have a preference to a certain vendor or need to have integration into the rest of their network, and we can fully support that as well. So that flexibility is really what sets us apart.
So before we get out of here, I do want to announce the winner. Jocelyn Thomas is the winner of the Retro Mini Fridge. I hope you enjoy that. It appears to have the ability to store an entire pineapple. So this has been the webinar for this week. Please, again, join us next week where we talk with Matt Etchison from Ivy Tech Community College. That'll be at the same time next week, 12:30 on Thursday. And you can register for the webinar. A link will be coming soon. And we hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.